Okay, hi everyone. Thanks so much. I think it was fantastic to see all. I cannot see every single face, but I'm scrolling through to look at you all because it's an absolute galaxy of glory. So my name's Kirsten Blair. I've been a member of the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance for some time, and have worked for several decades with the Mirarr traditional owners up in Kakadu, who have been resisting uranium mining on their country at Ranger and Jabiluka for a long time. And yeah, joining today in my capacity as a committee member of the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance, and I'm calling in from Wurundjeri country, which unceded land, obviously, and I'm a beneficiary of the violent dispossession that occurred here, as we all are, and I am grateful for the many ways in which traditional owners across the country continue to care for and remain connected to country, and I learn daily from that ongoing practice and culture. So I'm very, very grateful for that, and also incredibly aware, particularly through the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance, of the many negative impacts that the nuclear industry has had, particularly on traditional owners and First Nations people. It's well documented that the impacts of the nuclear industry disproportionately impact Indigenous people across the world, and certainly that's the case in Australia, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. So I'll just quickly talk a tiny bit about ANFA. So the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance is a black-green alliance that's been going for 28 years now, and was established really in response to the strong push by the Howard government to really try and open up uranium mining again, and subsequently has responded to lots of different pushes for uranium mining, also lots of proposed waste dumps. There's a lot of support and advocacy around communities that have been impacted by nuclear testing. And of course now, and this is really the topic for today, there is a strong proposal from the opposition at the moment to introduce nuclear power in 7 sites across the country. And so today we're going to hear from First Nations people with lived experience of the nuclear industry, who will talk to us about the involvement they've had in resisting unwanted proposals, and also talk about the concerns that they have with relation to some of the issues that would arise with if nuclear power was actually introduced in this country. So I will introduce. We've got 4 wonderful speakers, all of whom are connected with ANFA. So we're going to hear from Trish Frail, who's one of the co-chairs of ANFA, about the issue. So Trish was very involved in resisting a proposed radioactive waste dump on her country at Brewarrina. So she's going to talk to us about that experience and the kinds of issues that an imposed nuclear project can lead to for any community, really. And we have actually Aunty Sue Coleman Haseldine is very busy on country this week and has sent us video, which we'll share, which is a great opportunity to hear from her. And we're also going to hear from Glen Wingfield, who's a Kokotha man who's actually in Melbourne with us today from South Australia, and we're looking forward to hearing from him. He's continuing the work of his mum. And Jillian Marsh, Dr. Jillian Marsh, will talk to us about her personal experience, and also she has a strong academic analysis about the mining and approvals processes, particularly with relation to native title and Aboriginal heritage. So but we're going to kick off with a little video which shows several ANFA members. This was recorded at the most recent ANFA meeting, which was held in Wollongong last year. And it just gives a bit of an overview of the response of some of the ANFA community members from all across the country about concerns to do with nuclear power. So I might just watch that first.
People, they're getting sick and sick and sick. I say, enough is enough. Their beautiful land is already been damaged. Enough is enough.
It has separated us, it has destroyed the country, and families have died and had bad health problems. We don't want uranium, we don't want any nuclear waste. It has separated.
You're off your head to think that uranium and radiation and all this stuff, that it's clean and reliable. you know, when there's an accident with uranium or, you know, with radiation, stuff like that, it went down really bad. To say that, is it clean? No, it is not. We've been fighting this thing for a long time. I hope that you stop mining. That's it. Into binning country.
We're not here for money. We're here for country. Money's nothing to us. We can live off the country, but we don't need that dollar. That's all I could say. No to mining.
The message to those people who are saying nuclear power is the way forward is, think about the waste. Think about your children. Think about your grandchildren. So you make decisions today that will affect your next generations for 100,000 years to come. Look towards a better, brighter future, and it's not nuclear power, not nuclear subs. It's nothing nuclear. That's not the future. That's death.
Yeah, so powerful and great. And yeah, thank you, Sana, for that editing work and everyone who speaks on that video. It's wonderful. Now we're going to hear now from Trish Frail, who is an Ngemba traditional owner from Brewarrina, as I mentioned. And Trish has worked in social justice areas for her community, local, state, national, and a global level, specialising in domestic violence, homelessness, community development, and she's a business owner. She fought, this is very significant for this, fought in her local community against the proposed nuclear waste dump and has been a co-chair of ANFA for at least the last 3-4 years. So welcome, Trish. Thank you so much for your time and really looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I was just trying to unmute myself then. So, as said, I'm Trish Frail. I'm a Ngemba woman from Brewarrina. And one year, the council decided to have a community meeting. They got us all together. They told us all these wonderful things that the council had been doing for the last 12 months. And then at the end of the meeting, they hit us up with, we're going to build a nuclear waste dump. And we all just went, oh, and we didn't know what to say or do because, you know, nuclear had never been mentioned out in our area, which is Western New South Wales. And so we just let it go. Like, they told us all these wonderful things that it was going to do for us, you know, all these wonderful jobs and the millions of dollars that we will get from the nuclear industry and, you know, to do whatever the council wanted to do with. Anyways, after the meeting closed, the next day somebody came up to me and said, Trish, do you realise that Brewarrina is known worldwide for the fish traps, meaning the we have the oldest Aboriginal men site in the world at Brewarrina, and they're all of our fish traps. And he said, and if they ever build a nuclear waste dump out here, it'll only ever be known for nuclear. And I thought, oh, no, I don't want that. So I started a campaign. I've never done campaigning before. I didn't know what I was doing. However, I started putting stuff up on Facebook, and a lot of other people throughout Australia started clicking in on me. And so I got all this help. I got the help from ANFA. I got the help from the Greens. Like, I just got the help everywhere. Then more importantly, I got out and I educated the community. I'd done a lot of work going door to door and getting the support of the community. At the community meeting, the council actually had around about 95% support to build a nuclear waste dump. After I went out and educated the community, I had 96%, and council only had about 10%. So it was a really, really great outcome. More importantly, like, it wasn't a long campaign. it only lasted for about 3 months, and so that was really great. And then after that, I thought, I'm going to get on this council. And so when the elections came up, I nominated, and I was voted in. So I've been voted in twice now, and I as a Greens member, and I've also ran for the Greens in the federal elections. I knew I wasn't going to get in, but it doesn't matter because it was putting myself out there and putting the Greens out there. So, you know, I had a really good time. And I didn't mention also that I'm on Darrick land. I just came back from Bree for my council meeting. So, but one of the other things I really want to say, and as Aunty Sue said, uranium, like everybody needs, if they do need uranium, they also need to build a nuclear waste repository, and nobody's talking about that. So, you know, put that under the carpet, and let's just get the mining done on the uranium. So we need to put those two together and keep them together, so then the nuclear industry doesn't put it over the community in saying, you know, implying that we don't need a nuclear waste repository, and whereas we do. Everyone knows that Australia, we don't have a lot of water. We don't have a lot of rain. We are drought. We've just got over one of the largest droughts, and we also are now forming committees throughout Australia on how are we going to deal with the next drought. So let's look at the how they want to do nuclear energy and how much water that uses. Whereas it uses a lot, and I say a lot, more water than what the coal industry uses. It uses a hell of a lot more water than what the solar farms and the wind turbines use. So we really need to look at how much water is being used. And then the AUKUS, the submarines, like we really need to stop that and work with our communities throughout Australia in preventing the mining and then preventing nuclear waste repositories being built. So thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trish. Thank you so much. Thanks, Trish. There we go. I don't know
No
if you can
worries.
see all the smiling faces and their clapping hands, Trish. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your knowledge, and also for making that link, particularly to the issues to do with waste, because there certainly isn't in the current coalition proposals with relation to nuclear power. There's certainly not a discussion about what the story is with waste and how that's meant, how the proposal is to deal with it. Currently, the proposal is to just leave it all on site, which certainly is not being communicated to the communities where the reactors are proposed. So that's a really important point, as is that comment about water use, which again, multiple of the locations are really dry areas, and there certainly hasn't been a realistic assessment done about how that water would be acquired or where it would be taken from. Now we are going to hear now from Aunty Sue Coleman Haseldine, who has been the president of the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance for some time now. She's a Kokotha traditional owner and is a nuclear test survivor, and has been an outspoken advocate of Aboriginal culture and environmental protection for a long time. She was awarded the South Australian Premier's Award for Excellence in Indigenous Leadership in 2007, and in 2018, the Jill Hudson Award for Environmental Protection. And she has been a strong advocate for action at home, and is also an international Campaign Against Nuclear Weapons ambassador, and has spoken internationally on the issues to do with nuclear weapons and the impacts on communities. So we, as I mentioned, we have a video from Aunty Sue. So we're going to share that now.
Ready? Go. But my name's Sue Haseldine. I come from Custodian on South Australia, far west coast. ANFA, the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance. Well, I've been with them now for over 20 years. I'm currently their president. Now, ANFA is the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance, which is led by Aboriginal people with the help from a whole heap of wonderful non-Aboriginal people and friends. We have suffered with Maralinga, with radiation fallout, and when the bomb test happened, there's a lot of sickness. There still is. There's sicknesses. There's deformities, and stillbirths, and miscarriages, and cancers, and heart attacks in the men. Our men, there's triple heart bypasses, heart attacks, and it's just crazy because they're just barely hitting 50. Our girls, women, we're all getting thyroid problems, and like I said, birth defects and things like that are happening. None of this was around before Maralinga and Emu Montebello bomb testing. Do we really need more radiation? Waste dumps, uranium mines? Do we need these things? We know uranium mines killing the water supply, and now the government's talking desalination because there's not enough water left. Well, goodness sake, stop the mines so people can drink. Yeah, like I said, we bring people from Australia, Aboriginal people from Australia, all around Australia, we bring them together once a year to tell stories, support each other, keep the past alive so that we can protect the future for the future generations. We really desperately need no uranium mining, no waste dumps, no reactors. Nuclear power, that's going to cause a lot of trouble. Please don't forget Fukushima, don't forget Chernobyl. Accidents happen no matter where you are. And we don't need any more. We don't need repoisoning. We've been there once. Now there's a rocket that's been sent off from America and due to land on our country. The report is that rocket will be radioactive when it's coming back to Earth. So, on its flight path, what will it be spewing over all of us, including the town of Custodian? It's got to be spewing out some kind of gas and dust, which is going to land on the land and the people and the animals. Again, everybody forgets the animals. Well, in this instance, the government, United States, Southern Launch, Rocket Company, they're all forgetting the humans as well. And what they're doing is not experimental stuff. It's all getting prepared. It's warfare. It's, guided missiles and stuff like that. But what is it carrying? Is it in the future? Is it going to be a nuclear? Is it going to carry nuclear warheads, these guided missiles they're testing? We don't know because they're very secretive, of course. But I'm really worried about the fact that the flight path is over my town again, and the capsule is going to be radioactive, and what's it going to be spewing back on our people and our animals and our country again? Do we get poisoned all over again? And don't forget, we have AUKUS, America again. That's the nuclear submarines that we don't need, most of us in Australia don't want, and we're fearful of all the damage that will do to country and people and animals and the ocean. Why do we have to babysit the American nuclear subs? Why do we have to look after their waste, the radiation, their nuclear waste? Why is it okay for Australia to be the dumping ground, mainly for America by the seams, the dumping ground for all things nuclear, and what other countries don't want on their own countries, just send it to Australia? Why is that? Why weren't we asked? We were never asked if we wanted a uranium mine. We were never asked if it was okay to go and bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We were never asked about AUKUS. We were never asked about this rocket that's going to re-enter into our country. Some of our people were, yes, but I don't think they understood the full implications of what would be happening. But we were never asked for anything, and yet it's our uranium that's helping to destroy the world and the animals. If we were actually asked, we would have said no. Manda Yamaruiliga. Leave the land as it is. No more poisons. Bavanu Wea. No poisons.
Beautiful. Oh, yeah. So grateful to Aunty Sue for finding the time to make that recording for us amidst preparing to get out on country. Yeah, lots of claps there for Aunty Sue. I'll definitely pass that on. Yeah, she's on her way out to do on-country rockhole work, and also, yes, be vigilant in preparation for that rocket landing. So as you would have heard, the fact that the community around Ceduna and in that area where the weapons testing happened, certainly without any opportunity for people to provide consent, has left a legacy of deep distrust and fear, as well as enormous health issues and consequences intergenerationally. And this continues to be the case. The issues around consent and access, particularly for Indigenous people, are routinely ignored and overridden by government and industry. And as you could hear from Aunty Sue's comments, this has tangible impacts in terms of health. And there are also, as Aunty Sue also mentioned, the fact there's a very tangible example of the concerns around a nuclear power station with Fukushima. And the people I work for, the Mirror, was from their country that the uranium was taken and sent to Fukushima, where the reactors that melted down and had that huge impact on the surrounding community. And there are still 150,000 people who can't return to their homes, even this much time afterwards. And despite the fact that people were not given the opportunity to consent or otherwise, the cultural responsibility for the impact of a product from their country exists. And so the Mirror feel a responsibility for the impact of Fukushima. And as they or anyone from whose country uranium was taken for a nuclear power station in Australia, there would be that same concern. And the risk of a nuclear power station is real. We know that to be the case. So thank you so much, Aunty Sue, for sharing your very personal story. We're going to hear now from someone else who also has a very personal story, which is Glen Wingfield, who is a proud Kokotha and Arabana traditional owner. He's here from South Australia and has a really strong and long history of advocating for country and culture, and is continuing the work of his late mother, Mrs. Eileen Wingfield, who certainly did a lot of work around resisting particularly nuclear waste dump. And he's going to speak to us about the dangers and the risks presented by the nuclear industry. Thanks so much, Glen.
Good morning. Can people hear me? Yes, good morning. Just like to just acknowledge the land that I'm on here in Naarm, and also pay my respects to those elders, the old people like old Sue. She was an awesome campaigner, along with my late mum and the other people that done numerous years and years of campaigning and stuff against this these poisons. Like the old girl said years and years ago about uranium and those things, they don't discriminate. They don't care what color you are. When something happens, it happens, and it affects every single one of us. So that was a message that the old girl, along with her sidekicks there, the Kupiti Kungu mob, they portrayed when they went out to to the rest of the world with their message. So with all of this, campaigning and nuclear power, nuclear waste, and all that kind of stuff, I recently went to a forum in Port Augusta on nuclear site for nuclear power, which is, we had a bright, beautiful young nuclear bright spark who come from America. She was a Miss Beauty, Miss Beauty Queen pageant, done the world with, her nuclear physicist or in she came over sprucing a story about nuclear, and a couple of things she said which really, really, really got under my skin was she spoke about her campaigning and how good it was to be a Miss America for a long, long time, and didn't even worry about talking about nuclear engineering and that stuff. And when she got around to the nuclear engineering side of things, she asked the community for who ate a banana today, and a lot of people put their hands up. She said, "Oh, there's a lot more nuclear stuff in banana," and whoever else had a avocado, that's got a lot of uranium in it as well. So I thought, this woman is sprucing the wrong message to our community. And we tried to ask her questions. I wanted to ask her about, who sent her out? Why was it Port Augusta? Why are you not highlighting the fact that, that your little story about the banana and the avocado is wrong, and it's totally, you're leading people up the garden path. And they wouldn't even let me ask questions. So total waste of my time, total waste of my, my day. It put me in a bad mood, because you got these people there, nuclear engineers and stuff like it there, Miss America, out sprucing, lies to our community members. So, and I think, old Sue, when she spoke about, the need, there's going to be waste, from these places, nuclear power plants and stuff. And they, I think they want to. I think, Port Augusta is a really good spot. It's got access to water, it's the old power site, and it's got the infrastructure there that's, they could just plug straight into. And just up the road, up at Woomera, they've got, a federal area there where they got, they do the rocket testing and all that kind of stuff, locked away from the rest of the world, and very secretive. And I'm pretty sure they want to put the waste dump there. So it's going to be double whammy in South Australia where we are. We're going to have a power plant and a power dump. So I think we're going to have a big fight on our hands in the future. So I think we've just got to keep on that fight of those old people that led before us, walk in their footprints, and like Mr. Buzzcott, the late Mr. Buzzcott said, keep fighting, because this land is not theirs. We're here to look after this land, and I think that's what we got to work forward to. So thanks, guys.
Oh, so great. Thanks heaps, Glenn. And exactly, like we've won lots of fights. And I think one of the things we've recently got some feedback at an event where quite a few people came to talk about ANFA, and multiple of them said the reason they wanted to come was, could you hear me? Sorry, did people hear me then? No. Yes. Okay, great. Sorry. Was because they know that the anti-nuclear campaign is successful in this country, and Glenn's just cited heaps of examples of that. And so, yeah, there is a big fight at the moment, particularly against the nuclear power stations, but people are rallying, and we've got, we know we'll be on the right side of history on this one, which doesn't mean it's not a hard fight. It really is, and lots of people are digging in, and a lot of people on this call are involved. I know that in all kinds of ways, but it's fantastic to hear from people on the ground who are seeing the truth and certainly not being bamboozled by the colour and movement of the Nuclear for Australia roadshow, which certainly I know other people on this call went to some of those meetings in other parts of the country and were similarly frustrated by the fact that there was no opportunity to ask questions, the information, there was all that talk about the radiation in bananas and all of that. Sana's just popping in the chat. debunking that thing about the bananas. So if you want to have a look at that great article by Dr. Jim Green. Now we have one more speaker, which is Jillian Marsh. I'm really, really grateful, Jillian, for you being available. Yeah, great to see you. So yeah, as many people would be aware, Dr. Jillian Marsh is an Adnyamathanha traditional owner. She's an academic, researcher and lecturer in Indigenous studies, and Jillian's professional background includes academic roles, public and private sector consultancy, Aboriginal education in schools, community-based research and environmental health. So yes, very grateful, Jillian, for having you. Your community-based work and academic expertise is recognised at home and internationally. Also awarded the Jill Hudson Environmental Award in 1998 and the Nuclear Free Futures Award in 2008. And Jillian's doctoral program was in the multidisciplinary areas of human geography, environmental studies, linguistics, and Aboriginal studies. So the person we have in front of us is a very capable, smart, competent human, and we're very grateful that you've got time to speak with us today, Jillian. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Really glad to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation. As with other people, I've been part of the ANFA movement for a long time. I think the first meeting I ever went to was the second ever meeting that was held in Alice Springs way back in, I think it was about 1989 or something. So yeah, I've been in and out of the ANFA movement all the way through, and my PhD work focused very much on what ANFA and the people who collectively make up ANFA have been campaigning for ever since. I'm on the lands of the Kulin Nation, so I'm in Nara, I'm in Melbourne as well, about to move up to Albury-Wodonga, and I've just recently joined the Charles Sturt University, so that has a footprint across a large part of New South Wales, and of course different nations such as the Wurundjeri Nation. So I'm really pleased to be here, and today I wanted to flag a few things that over the years have always stayed with me, and one of them to start with is very much the experience that our friend here, Trish, has shared. Trish, I actually had tears in my eyes when I heard you speaking, because that experience is such a common one. I think all of us who really care and really are concerned about what the nuclear industry is doing and what it's done to us, and also potentially what it's going to do in the future, not just to us, but for all Australians, it's there, it's upon us. And it takes people like us to spearhead the campaign to bring the voice of ordinary Australian people to the table, and particularly Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So yeah, Trish, very heartfelt thanks to the bravery that you've shown, and I'm sure we'll continue to show. A really touching story for me, and I'm sure for many others. And I suppose now I want to go back to the fact that, you know, in this country, you know, we're classed as being a modern country, where we're classed as being a rich country, and yet we have these systemic failures of legislation to protect cultural resources. And for me, that doesn't go hand in hand. What it tells me is that a large part of that success of building a rich modern nation has come at the expense of protecting cultural resources. And particularly, you know, fundamentally, I'm talking about land, I'm talking about water, I'm talking about life on earth. And one of the biggest failures that I've seen that still hasn't really been properly addressed is the burden of evidence that continues to be a very key part of oppression of Indigenous Australian values and priorities. This is a fighting for it, and we know that legislation like the Aboriginal Heritage Act in all its different forms is not doing the job that it should, and we know that there are many failures, and the most I guess, obvious failure is that under the Aboriginal heritage legislation in Australia at the federal level, there's never ever been one single successful prosecution against those who have transgressed Section 12 and Section 23, for example, of the South Australian Aboriginal heritage legislation. There's never been a single prosecution. So having an Aboriginal heritage legislative framework in this country is a laugh. It's a joke. And the joke's on us. But unfortunately, the joke is also on Australia at large for maintaining such a strong colonial push and presence and ongoing determination to shut us out as the sovereign peoples. And also the right to veto. When we think about the right to veto, it doesn't exist under native title. The only right we have under native title is the right to negotiate for compensation and loss. There's no such thing under native title that's going to protect us or going to enable us to have a voice. As Glen said, we're being silenced. If we don't comply, we're shut out of the process. And anyone who does speak out is then branded as being some sort of vigilante or some sort of dissident voice. That's rubbish. And that's the myth that industry and government have to maintain and have to perpetuate, because they know that if they don't, well, then they're running the risk of the Australian population at large actually finding out what's really going on in this country and taking a stand against what's happening in areas where there are proposals such as nuclear waste dumps, such as new uranium mines, such as transportation routes that aren't properly established and run the risk of contaminating vast areas of Australia without the people along the way even knowing what's going on. But all of this brings me back to my own cultural background, my own cultural knowledge about poison. And we've heard everyone talk about poison before I've come to this space. Vasinyi is the word we have in our Ngawala, in our language, for poison. And Vasinyi Miliura is the wind that carries the poison. And we know that poison, from what happened over there with Emu Junction and Maralinga, that Vasinyi Miliura went right across the country, all the way over to Sydney. So the people that are experiencing the health problems now and facing contamination ongoing in their country, it's right across this country. Vasinyata, where they're proposing to not only dig up the poison, but also create more places to keep the poison waste, is something, again, it's, you know, for us as Indigenous people, as traditional owners, that's being treated like, you know, we've got some sort of fairy tale myth that we're trying to put out there, but it's not a fairy tale, it's not a myth, because it's there for all of us to experience. It doesn't discriminate. It's going to affect, and it's already affecting, every person. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, how rich you are. If you're in that pathway, you're going to be affected by it. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was about, you know, again, the gaps in the Australian system. What we need is some reform and design that does the job. It actually does the job in protecting country and upholding First Nations sovereign rights. This has to be addressed, and Aboriginal heritage and native title is not doing the job. I suspect that treaties also are not going to do the job. The track record of treaties in other countries, and also the track record of what's being proposed and talked about here in Australia, I really feel concerned that it's going to fall short of actually protecting us. It's just going to provide yet another loophole for industry, another loophole for government to circumvent the environmental, cultural and social impact assessment process that they should have in place, but they haven't. And I suppose we can look at international frameworks such as the Sustainable Development Goals and the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples as international frameworks. And I know we're already doing that in some manner and form here in Australia now, but there are specific ones in there I think that we really need to focus on, such as greater system changes and accountability. So SDG 9, for instance, industry innovation and infrastructure, building resilient infrastructure, inclusivity and sustainability. SDG 16, peace, justice and strong institutions. We need greater accountability, and that's a big part of making sure there is justice and there is sustainable development in this country. SDG 17, strengthening the means of implementation and revitalise global partnerships. Again, we're trying to do that all the time, but we know that the budget for independent NGOs such as ACF and FO is shrinking all the time. This is government and industry silencing us at a broader level. The other SDGs that are really important are the ones called life below water and life on land. They're critical to the ongoing survival of the planet. They're critical to the ongoing survival of human life and the broader concept of life on this planet as we know it. So now I want to kind of move on to a discussion space, I suppose. So a way of doing that, I thought, would be to put some pointers into the chat box now. And I'm going to cut and paste those and put them in there right now, and then open it up for discussion, so that if we do have time for some discussion, well then maybe these are some of the things that will help us pick up on that.
That's great. Thanks so much, Jillian. Yeah, awesome. That's perfect. Good segue, because there's lots of points I think Jillian's just popped in the chat. That's fantastic. Thank you. And thanks so much for covering so much so succinctly. That was really a lot of content. I appreciate it a lot. And we'll just, I think what we'll do, I'll just do a little wrap, and then we've got a little bit of, couple of announcements, and then we'll have a little bit of time for questions. And so those are really good jumping off point for those. So thank you. Perfect segue. But yeah, I also want to just thank all of the speakers before we wrap. And all of you, obviously, for taking the time to join. And I've been really enjoying watching how engaged everyone is, watching all the nodding along and supportive faces as we've heard from people across the country talking about their experiences. Now, I know one of the things that's really important is ways that you can participate or show that you are also supportive of this campaign and in opposition to the nuclear power proposals. And so the 11th of March is the 14th anniversary of the Fukushima disaster, and that's a national day of action here in Australia against nuclear power specifically. So anyone is welcome to participate in that however they choose. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. Obviously, posting something on social media is a very easy way. There are there's lots of comments on the chat at the moment. There's 114 people on this call, which is wonderful. So yes, hooray for everybody. There are events happening. If you're in Melbourne, Naarm, there's a rally in the afternoon at the State Library. I know there's an event in Gippsland. I think there are events in other places as well. And the Don't Nuke the Climate website is where those various events are being collated. So if you are not sure if there's something near you, you can check there, or if you're organising something, you can share that with Don't Nuke the Climate. And I guess part of the message for the 11th of March is that never again Fukushima, and never here, never in Australia. And in addition to the events in person, there's also a webinar that Don't Nuke the Climate is holding. Now, Sana's just put the link to that in the chat right now, so I highly recommend that you grab that link, or you can find it on the Don't Nuke the Climate website, which again, it's Fukushima Never Here, and it's a webinar on the risks of a nuclear accident in Australia. And we've got great speakers, as ever, Tillman Ruff from the Medical Association for the Prevention of War, and Dr. Jim Green, who many of you know is the nuclear-free campaigner with Friends of the Earth, Sakio Noda, who is a man who lives in Sydney, who is Japanese and spent time at Fukushima after the accident doing radiation monitoring, and has a lot of stories of human impact of the disaster, which are really powerful. And it's emceed by Nellie Stevenson, who some of you will know. So the link to sign up for that webinar is actually just right now in the chat as well. So you can you could jump on and sign up to that if that is of interest. So we are. Oh, yeah. So someone's just asking if we can share the chat with the attendees. I think we can save the chat. Yes, and we will do a follow-up email to everybody with a couple of resources as well. So yes, thank you for that question. Now, I think we do have time for a couple of questions. Jillian's just asking when the next ANFA meeting is. So that is in September, I believe. Yeah, September, and we're holding it back at Pitchy Ritchie, so in South Australia, just outside Corn. Kirsten, I really like your earrings. Well, these were made by Marika, who lives in Port Augusta, in fact. So yes, look up Marika. I'll find that and we can send that around too, because everyone should buy her earrings. I agree. Side topic, but you know, I love talking about earrings. All right, so we have time for a few questions. Everyone's laughing at me. So if you have a specific question, probably easiest to pop it in the chat if it's to one of the speakers, or if it's a general question. And as I mentioned before, there's also some really good discussion points that Jillian has shared. So maybe there are things that you would want to jump off from there, from that message that Jillian put into the chat. So anyone now, bearing in mind, look at this, hands are up. Honey, can I unmute you, or you have to unmute yourself? Yeah. Hi.
Thank you. Hello. I'm a relatively recent arrival in ANFA, but have been very concerned a long time. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Aunty Sue not long ago in Naarm. And I just wanted to, it was interesting that there's apparently an annual First Nations meeting regarding country and people and safety. And I wondered if that, it's just a question, whether or not that sort of event could be the foundation for a call out for a wider spread gathering of First Nations and settler peoples to really raise this issue. And I'll just mention also that a very long time friend, 30 odd years, Uncle Kevin Buzzicott, this was his life's mission. And KB, his work ever since I've known him was the dream to call together a national gathering of First Nations and supporter people to address these great issues of you know, on all the countries affected and indeed the whole continent. So just a query whether or not that is an idea to sort of start working on, that we could build towards a national gathering on a scale and importance of topic which cannot be ignored by the nation or by media.
Yeah. Thanks, honey. And thank you so much for referencing Uncle Kevin, as a couple of people did through today's session. And certainly the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance is the ongoing legacy of Uncle Kevin Buzzicott, who was a founding member and deeply involved with ANFA right up until the end of his life. He attended almost every meeting of those annual gatherings, which I think is what you're referencing, the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance meetings, which have been held every year for the last 28 years with a little gap for COVID. And I think it's really important that we remember there are so many people whose hard work, Glen's mum and many others who, have now passed on, and whose incredible resistance work and leadership is what we are drawing on now, and are the reason that we've had so many of the successes we've had, is that the power of the old people, and we carry that strength forward with us. And absolutely, that it's that kind of legacy that will continue to build something like the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance annual meeting. And certainly each year new people come in, and the significance is certainly not able to be ignored. But you're right, we can always make more noise. And there is a question in the chat specifically about strategy for the upcoming election. And absolutely, this is part of this and the National Day of Action. a part of raising and just elevating the level of resistance that exists around the country to the nuclear power stations. And so there is certainly very strong opposition on the ground at each of the sites, and there is a broad recognition that from all kinds of people that there are all kinds of reasons why nuclear power is not the answer for this country. Obviously, all of the people on this call understand the danger and the poison, as we keep referencing, the waste, the issues to do with mining, but the water use, the fact that it's actually just a deferral from moving towards the climate targets, and it's just an opportunity for the fossil fuels to be continued in the meantime because none of these power stations are ready to go. All of those arguments, exactly in response to that person, are what are being raised. And yeah, this is part of that, to give everyone on this call an opportunity to have some more of those arguments. And I guess there's just a question here. There's so Jim Green has a wonderful presentation outlining a lot of the issues to do with nuclear power. And there's been some work done to develop a train the trainer for that, so people can hold their own conversations in their communities, which is a really powerful way to spread the word, because as everyone knows, a trusted voice is often where people will take information as true. So that's a question, I guess, if there is an interest in that as something for you or your community, it would be really useful to know. I mean, you could just pop it in the chat or share with, oh yeah, so Sana's just shared Jim's presentation there, and we'll share that in the follow-up email as well. And I guess there'll be an opportunity through that. Maybe people can indicate if there's an interest in having the train the trainer sessions. That would be another opportunity. All right, maybe we've got time for one more question, if anyone has one. I don't know if it's going to show me people's faces. Yeah, although actually now that I see what the time is, maybe we should actually just wrap. Because we should finish on time, because I know people are here on their lunch break, and I really appreciate that you've taken that time, and I really hope that you've found this helpful, given you some more information about this specific set of perspectives on the issue of nuclear power. And I guess, so two things I'd love you to take away from this is that the 11th of March is the National Day of Action, and really encourage you to participate in that, however works for you. Maybe it's in your workplace. You can, put up the hand sign and just talk to people about it a bit, or put something up on social media, or, ring the radio, write a letter to the local paper, ask your local MP for a meeting to talk about nuclear power, all kinds of opportunities. Come to the rallies. But the other thing to just remember that this is yet another example, and this is particularly relevant in the First Nations perspectives context, of the fact that the nuclear industry continues to operate with no consent. So in this country, weapons tests were imposed on country without consent. Uranium mining has been routinely imposed without consent. The waste dumps, every single time the proposals for a waste dump location has been imposed. And every single time so far, this country, everyone has seen it off. Traditional owners at whichever site have seen off those proposals. There has not been consent for a waste dump. And now what we're talking about, the nuclear power stations, absolutely no consent, opportunity for consent by the local communities, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal, any local site. The proposal does not involve discussing whether or not people want to have it. Yeah, and as Jillian's saying, yeah, free, fair and informed consent is a basic human right that is denied to First Nations people routinely across this country. So the reality is that if you haven't had the chance to say no, you certainly can't be considered to have said yes. So that is certainly the case across this country with relation to everything to do with nuclear, and particularly at the moment to do with nuclear power. So as I mentioned, we are, as ever, the anti-nuclear campaign across this country, very, very good at raising our voices and letting people know. And I know that everyone on this call will do a great job of sharing the stories they've heard today, and it just weaving this component of the story into all of the reasons why nuclear power for this country is absolutely not the way to go. So thank you all for being on here. We will follow up with an email, and yeah, please keep in touch, and we look forward to continuing to work with you to see the end of this silly proposal about nuclear power. All the best.